Good morning and welcome to episode 228 of the Tree Talk podcast. Myself, Jack Neville, and Matt Callan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star. Another brilliant weekend for Limerick GA with the senior hurlers win the league title for the third time in 5 years. It makes them league, All-Ireland and Munster champions as of now, with only 10 days to go to the Munster Championship. So we're looking back on that game against Kilkenny and looking forward to the Munster Championship. We have a host of guests coming on, Matt, as well. We have Maurice O'Connor and Anthony McCarthy from the Limerick Masters team, and we've Diarmuid Ryan from the Limerick under-16 Camogie side that won the first ever Munster Championship at the weekend. So we'll stay tuned for all that and more.
The impression again we get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well, Todd, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Maurice O'Connor, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge to the left brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
As I said, another brilliant week for Limerick Hurling, Matt. But we'll start with football this morning with Maurice O'Connor, captain, and Anthony McCarthy, the manager of the Limerick Masters team. Lads, good morning to you.
Morning.
Morning, lads.
Anthony, I'll go to you. I suppose for anyone that isn't really aware of how this came about, because we haven't had a Masters team for a long time, if ever. I'm not really sure of the exact details, but I suppose, how did it come about?
Well, Jack, first of all, it's the first ever Masters football team in Limerick. It all came about before Christmas. A few lads went into UL just for a kick around. The over 40 just to have a kick around, just to meet up and have a kick around. And the dads and lads at the same time started. And so it all kind of combined into one. The boys from East Limerick and City, we played Galway in a match for Milford Hospice in St. Patrick's Ground in November. And after that, then Joe Mulcahy, which is the main man behind the whole lot, he contacted players and we had trials. And this is where we are now. We're after picking a panel of 36 players for the year to go ahead.
36 players. I suppose, are they all as fit as the others? There are a lot of lads that are looking to get back into shape.
Well, Jack, it's like this. You know, now fellas these days, they look after themselves now, which is a good thing. Joe, there's fellas there that they're still playing a bit of football with their clubs at junior level and junior B level, and I think there's one or two playing intermediate, and there's a few lads who come back out of retirement who are coaching the underage teams, and they were just mad to play a bit of football. And when the word got out to them, I actually thought that I'd be lucky to get a panel of 36 to start, but it ended up that I think it was 58 or 59 people came to the trials, so which was brilliant.
Yeah, I suppose it's tough love there, trying to cut lads that are out to play for the love of the game. Maurice, for yourself, I suppose, how did you get on board?
So, as Anthony said, Joe Mulcahy is one of the main drivers behind it. So, Joe, I think, contacted everyone individually back in January. So, done an amount of work. So, coming from West Limerick, there'd be a great football stronghold. And the first day out, it was mainly down in 𝘕𝘰𝘷𝘦. It was a lot of West Limerick lads there. But then we had the East boys and the City boys and the South boys all came on board, and we've been training away inside in UL. Anthony, great manager, great fun. We've Aidan as a selector, and Jason, probably the more serious of the lot as the coach, to crack the whip. He's doing a fantastic job as well. But so Liam Mulcahy as well as our PRO, he's done a fantastic job. We're famous all around the county. He's publicising us everywhere. So great bunch of lads in the background, and the players as well. Really gelled together in the last 2 months, yeah.
I suppose enjoyment is probably the key thing. Obviously, whenever you're going to play a game, you want to win, but it does seem that it's more so for enjoyment.
Yeah, there's enjoyment, but I suppose we're all now in our 40s, and there's a competitive streak through every one of us, I suppose. If you're playing for 20 plus years, you like winning, but the enjoyment is at this stage is great as well. Yeah, for a lot of the lads, younger kids, and seeing them put on a Limerick jersey, it's a massive thing. Yeah.
Is the kids a driver to get out of the house?
Not for me, yes. My first baby is due in June, so for a lot of the lads, that's the way they're going. Yeah, definitely. They brought them to the game there last Saturday in Clare, and great to see kids around the dressing room enjoying seeing their fathers put on a Limerick jersey. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that game there with a minute with Anthony. But how is it like going from playing against players for the last 20 or 25 years in Limerick circles to playing with them?
Surprisingly great, yeah. Originally, I suppose I played for Father Casey's for over 20 years. The last 3-4 years, I've been playing with Mulcollins, where I married. But we've come up against the boys from 𝘠𝘱𝘵 a lot in county finals, and they always seem to get the better of us. But now there's probably 5-6 lads from 𝘠𝘱𝘵 on the current team, and couldn't meet a nicer bunch of lads. Yeah, so it's great to finally be on their side and not having to run around after them. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that drum team that were so successful in the thousands on the team. Anthony, first run out at the weekend against Clare. Were you happy just to dust off the cobwebs?
I was. It was great because we had 8 weeks training done, within trials and all that, 8 weeks training, and to get a match. We went to have a match the week before against Cork, but it was cancelled because we couldn't get a venue. So finally to get a run out against Clare. And every fella that out got plenty of game time. There was fellas panting after 20 minutes. They were coming off for me to bring them back on. But look at for the lads to get a run out, put on the Limerick jersey, get a run out, play as a team together was brilliant. And they played well, got a good result. But as I said, we'll focus now again. We've another match the weekend.
Yeah, the match this weekend against Cork on in Gaeltacht Gaels on Saturday, 2:00. I suppose looking for people to come out and support you.
Always looking for people to come out and support us, Jack. It's great. Look at these lads are putting an effort in. Like some of them would have won a county jersey before at both codes, and they're getting a chance now to represent Limerick again, which is, as Maurice said, there for their young kids to see them play, or see their dads play football for Limerick, which probably a lot of these fellas thought they wouldn't get a chance again, and they're getting the chance to put on the jersey. Look at all the support we can get is what we'd like.
Yeah, it's brilliant to see. Matt, I'll throw it over to you there for a minute.
And Anthony, you saw a spectacular point scored by 𝘰𝘰𝘷𝘦𝘭𝘴 𝘔𝘰𝘷𝘦𝘳𝘪𝘮𝑒𝑎. How's he getting on with the big ball?
Matt, Kieran is Kieran. Nothing phases him. He does what he does. He comes into training, trains away there. It doesn't matter if it's a light session, a tough session. Kieran is Kieran. He'll give it 100% whenever he goes. And as he said the first day himself, football wouldn't be his first love, but he's getting there. And look at it, it's duck to water. There's no fear of Kieran.
Tinny, obviously there's a structure in place for an inter-county series in the Masters. Could you just outline to our listeners and our viewers what that structure is and the number of games that you would be playing?
So, Matt, it's a group. It was a group stage at the moment. We have 6 matches. We have 3 matches at home. We have 3 matches away. Our first match is away to Waterford on the 6th of May. We're at home to Kerry in Killeedy on the 10th of June, I think it is. Oh, no, sorry, the 20th or in the May. Sorry, we're in Kilteely, then playing Laois on the 10th of June. We're away to Westmeath. We have Roscommon in Claghon, and then our last match then is away to Cork. And the way it goes then, it's in a group stage then, and it all depends where you finish in the league table. This year there's 23 teams in it, so it all depends where you finish. You go into either A, B, C, or D. I think this year they've actually brought in the Division 5. So I think it's just to make sure that everyone is guaranteed. I think it's an Ireland quarter-final or a semi-final or something, whatever division you qualify in.
Turning to you, Maurice, obviously there's a huge turnout and a huge interest in it, and Jack touched on it there. How much of this is players refusing to accept maybe that their mainstream careers are over?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I'm talking about retiring for 10 years, and I'm probably one of the youngest of the panel. Yeah, GA is our life, I suppose. Yeah, bred from my father and my brother, all through our family. You come back to me in 10 years' time, and I'll probably be still tipping away and trying to retire. But yeah, I suppose, what else could we be doing in the evenings? Only watching Coronation Street. It's great to get out, meet like-minded people, get onto the football field. I delved in a bit of coaching this year for the first time, and you know what? It's a lot easier to play. I don't wish Anthony's job on him at all. So it's as long as the legs keep moving, we can still keep playing. Yeah, it's great to be out there.
It's obviously something new, Maurice, and is there extra responsibility on you, seeing that it's a fledgling event and a fledgling team for Limerick?
Extra responsibility, yeah. So the captaincy obviously is not a curse. I'm just happy to be out playing. So I don't know why I'm the captain, because there's a lot better players than me on the team. But yeah, it's great to represent Limerick anytime, to put on the county jersey. I played in minor. I didn't play after that. It's great to get a second chance. And there's a lot of lads in the team like that. Then there's also like ex-county guys that are coming back for a second bite of the cherry. And first time Masters Limerick football team, yeah. We had a great start last week in our challenge game against Clare. We're going to take it game by game, not get too ahead of ourselves. Each team brings a new challenge. We don't really know what we're facing. Yeah, hopefully we do the county proud as the hurlers did us last Sunday, yeah.
How did you get on against Clare, Maurice?
I don't know the exact score, but we won well. No, Clare were grouping probably for one of their first gatherings of the year. We've done a good bulk of work since late January. So maybe we're slightly ahead of them in our fitness. But we won by, over 10 points, which was a great day out. Any day you can win is a great day out. But I'm sure next Saturday against Cork, we face a new challenge and we could be brought back to earth very, very quick. So it's great when you're winning. It's all about enjoyment. But as you know yourself, it's when you're winning, everything is easier. It's easier going to training, go to the matches. So as I said to Joe McCahey coming off the field last week, winning is a habit. So hopefully we keep going that direction. But yeah, I'm sure Cork next Saturday will bring us back to earth fairly quick.
Sorry, it was just one final question to Anthony, Jack. Are the rules the same as mainstream Gaelic football with regard to the number of substitutes, etc.?
At the moment, it's the playing rules are the same. Substitutes, it's roll on, roll off. We're waiting for confirmation from the top table of how many players we can tag off in a day. I think we're waiting. Last year there was some teams had 40 fellas tagged off on the sideline, and I think that's been cut down. So we don't know how many players we can tag off in a certain day, but hopefully we'll be able to tag off to 36 every day, and for the 6 championship games. And look, as I said, we're here to enjoy ourselves, have fun, but when we go out on the pitch, we take it serious to win. As Maurice said, winning is a habit, and look, let's hopefully we'll represent Limerick proud and we'll do ourselves proud.
Yeah, I'm sure you're doing yourselves and the county proud. Just launch night on Friday in the Woodlands. What time is that kicking off, Anthony, just for anyone that's looking to get out and support you?
The launch night is on the Woodlands Friday night at 7:30. So look at it. Joe McCahey is putting a savage amount of effort into this. The special guests coming. I don't ask me who they are now. I know that there's a sign of special guests coming. I know the chairman of the Limerick or the Gaelic Masters Association from Mayo's coming down. Some fellow in Sligo coming down. So look, it's going to be a good night in the Woodlands. So look, we're looking forward to it. It's a big night for us. We want to get this out in the track as our first year with it. Hopefully, we get a good turnout, good support for the year, and look, we'll drive on from Saturday morning again.
Yeah, well, the best luck to you on Friday in the Woodlands and also on Saturday against Cork and 𝘚𝘱𝘵 Gaels. And then obviously the big one, the 6th of May, away to Waterford. Anthony, manager, Maurice O'Connor, captain. Thanks very much for your time, lads, and the best luck for the year going forward.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
No, that was Limerick Masters manager Anthony McCarthy and captain Maurice O'Connor ahead of a busy few months for the side, the first ever iteration of the Limerick Masters side. So we wish them all the best going forward. But I suppose going from football into Camogie, we've another guest, Matt, now. Diarmuid Ryan, manager of the victorious Limerick under-16s Camogie side, winning the first ever Munster A championship at the weekend. Diarmuid, I suppose you're a happy man waking up these days after Saturday or Monday's win.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's under 16 isn't all about winning or anything like that, but it is great to come out on the right side of a game like that. You know, we have a great bunch, and it's nice to be successful as well. You know.
Yeah, and the bit of history with it as well. First ever win at the grade, and as you said, it's not all about winning, but you know, the players won't think that themselves at 16. All they'll want to do is win, and that's what they've done.
Absolutely, and you know, we didn't. I don't think it was something we set out knowing that it was going to be the first time we had won a Munster championship at A level. That wasn't our goal or anything like that. I suppose we want to be successful, but we didn't know it was the first time Limerick had ever won a 16 championship. It was great, you know. It was really, really good. And from a player's perspective, of course, they want to be as successful as they can. We have a very strong group. We're able to compete in the A division now in the Munster and the All Ireland, which isn't always the case with Limerick. So look, we're delighted to be there, you know.
And I suppose for a Limerick Camogie side going to Mallow against a Cork Camogie team, you know, it's a daunting enough task. Before the game ever started, did you get the impression that the girls were confident going down there?
Yeah, well, we played Tipperary in the semi-final a couple of weeks ago, and you know, we built up a nice lead at half time and kind of just about hung on to it for a finish, and it was a really good game to come through. And you know, over the last couple of years, we've kind of figured this is a strong group. We're able to mix it with the best teams, and we had hoped coming down we would be competitive. Before the match, I think there were certain things that might have thrown the players a bit. There was a big Limerick crowd, which was fantastic for the girls to experience. You know, there was a fine, even an awful lot of people who had no connection with the team came down and supported them, which was brilliant. And you know, they got a big cheer when they came out, and then there was the anthem was on, so stuff like that they weren't maybe 100% used to. Might have thrown them a small bit, but look, they reacted really well and played excellently and managed to come out on the right side. You know, it's great.
Yeah, you said there might have thrown him a small bit. It was, I suppose, nip and tuck really in the first half, but the second half performance is probably, you know, the team that you're used to limiting Cork to just a single point. You must have been very, very happy with that.
We're thrilled. Yeah, look, there was a fine breeze blowing down the field. We had it in the first half, and to only go in maybe 2 points up was not part of the plan. It was nearly, you know, we felt that there was more in that breeze, but we knew if we could stick to maybe the system we play and you know, bring what we always bring, that we would be there at the end. And really, they even stepped it up above and beyond that in the second half. They were excellent. You know, we got a goal at a good time in the second half, and then Cork came down. They had a free from the 21, and look, if that had gone in, it would have made it an awful lot tighter. But it was a big turning point in the half. You know, we drove on from there. It was great.
Yeah, and you've been with the team now for 3 years, following from under 14s. Have you seen this big progression from them over the years?
Well, yeah, you know, we started under 14. It was the first. We just come out of the first lockdown. We were in the first lockdown in COVID, and you know, we maybe didn't have a whole lot of time with the players. And the first ever game we had was actually below in Cork, and we got a nice trimming, and we were kind of saying, "Jesus, what are we in for here with this?" But you know, as soon as we got organised and we got together, I think since then we've been very, very strong. You know, we've been able to mix it with the stronger teams in the A grade, which is great. You know, so we knew if we could just bring them along and be organised in the best way we can, that we'd have a chance no matter who we were playing. You know.
Yeah, and I suppose to be in the A grade with the likes of, you know, Cork and Tipperary, was that always the goal, just to compete at the highest level?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it was mentioned. Myself and another coach ran a call last year, and it was mentioned that look, maybe it was something we could do with maybe entering the B, and we were saying not a hope for the A, because you know, there'd be no value in us winning the B. You know, we were strong enough to compete at A. We'd be able to have a good go off it, and you know, it is nice to be able to compete with the stronger teams. We're trying to bring on players that will be able to play with Limerick senior Camogie team in a few years' time, and to do that, I think it's important to play at the highest level you can. You know.
Yeah, well, it's been successful so far. Matt, I'll throw it over to you there.
Diarmuid, first of all, congratulations on what was a fantastic performance. I'll tell you, I think you would have probably got long odds before the semi-final when your path was that you go to Tipperary, first of all, in the semi-final. And if you won, you went to Cork. So I think that was a fair achievement. You move on now to an All-Ireland series, Diarmuid. You might just explain to us what happens from here. What's the path forward now?
Yeah, so there are 6 teams in the top division, the All-Ireland series. Our first game is away to Cork again, probably down the Camogie grounds in Cork, which will be a longer spin than Mallow even. And look, we'll be up against it. There'll be a target on our backs after winning Munster, but at the same time, there's no weak team in that division. So it's up to us now to see can we drive it on and be competitive in that grade as well,
In your panel, looking at your panel, Diarmuid, there are some very, very interesting connections. I'm talking about Grace Hegarty, possibly Sophia Carey, Rachel O'Grady, and a certain Caitlin Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's others there as well. There's an awful lot of players have connections there with current and past players. Of Molly Tobin and Brian Tobin there as well, and Emer Donovan, her brother, I think, is captain of Limerick 2010 there. So it's you have a lot of connections, but I think this team that they're keen to forge their own identity there, and they're happy enough to go on their own backs. There's no relying on names or clubs or anything like that. They've driven it on themselves, which is great.
Yeah, so it's all shoulders to the wheel now for the next couple of weeks in preparation for that rematch with Cork.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's we've taken a break this week now. We've kind of had a tough few months worth of training with some tough sessions over the last while. Played a lot of challenge matches, so we'll take a break. We'll enjoy the Munster Championship win, and we'll be back hard at it next week and have a go after the next couple of weeks. And look, we've 5 games. I think if we win 3 of them, we'll be into or win 2 or 3 of them, we'll be into semi-final, and that's definitely the goal, to try to get to the knockouts again, and see how we go.
In terms of Limerick Camogie, Diarmuid, it's a hugely important win.
Absolutely, it's I know the senior team got relegated last year and had a great result against Offaly the last day to stay up, and the junior team have had a tough start, but you'd be hoping they'll pull together as well. But it is great for Limerick Camogie to have teams that can compete at the highest level with the teams that are at the highest level, and we'll be hoping. We think there's an awful lot of players in this panel that will drive it on. I suppose it is worth noting as well that it is a strong age group. It's the under 16 B team had a great win at the weekend as well down in Tipperary in their Munster semi-final. They're into a Munster final as well, and that's kind of indicative that there is a really strong bunch there. There's 50 or 60 really strong players, and maybe even a couple of others that aren't playing with the county panel for whatever reason that could contribute. But it's a strong age group, which is great for Limerick Camogie, as I say.
That's it from me, Jack. Best of luck in the All-Ireland series, Diarmuid.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, and I'll echo that. And I suppose there's good omens for Limerick Camogie that I suppose the minor team, Matt, and we spoke about it from 2014, have backboned an awful lot of success for Limerick. They obviously won the intermediate that year as well. So please God, Diarmuid, you and your team can follow in those footsteps. But I suppose all aboard the train for Cork next month in the first round of the Munster Championship. But enjoy the victory. They don't come around very often. First time ever for Limerick. Well done to you and your players, and thanks a million for joining, Diarmuid.
No matter. Thanks, lads.
Thanks, Diarmuid. Take
Lovely,
care.
Thank you. Diarmuid Ryan, Limerick under 16s Camogie manager after they won the Munster A championship. Matt, a huge achievement. It's fair to say these things don't come around very often. As we said, first time for Limerick. And, I mentioned that team from 2014 and you've spoken at great lengths, and don't want to put pressure on players that are only 16 years of age. But, Limerick Camogie has shown that if there's a good crew to come through, they can, make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah, but look, this is fantastic, and I think Diarmuid nailed it there in terms of putting it into context for Limerick Camogie and the future for Limerick Camogie. Look, we're aware of an awful lot of work being done at ground level in Limerick Camogie, and this is the first real dividend of that work, the first real product of it. So it's fantastic, and it will only act as a catalyst for more, I feel, Jack, and it will help to drive on the various underage groups when they see, with a bit of work, a bit of organisation, what can be achieved. And like, it's congratulations to the lads. They've stuck with him for 3 years, and they have got their reward. And we wish them the very best of luck in the All Ireland series. And I have no doubt in this medium that we will be tracking their progress.
Yeah, we definitely will, and I'll echo that congratulations as well. Look, it's brilliant to see any Limerick team win, and the Camogie. It's been an up and down year across the board, but I suppose that win for the seniors against Offaly might just be the turning point. You have the under-16s now as well, and you mentioned the B side as well going well, so maybe that's the turning point for Limerick Camogie.
If I was ever really nervous going to a match, Jack, I was rarely as nervous as I was going to the Limerick and Offaly game this year. Because I sort of couldn't countenance that Offaly would send us packing down for a second year in a row. But I was pleased with obviously very pleased with the result, but I was far more pleased altogether with the performance, Jack.
Yeah.
That I think was crucial. It's not just winning it; it's the way they won it. And I was saying to myself coming home, how in the name of God how did they find themselves in this position? And like, we want to see more of the same and an improvement going forward into the championship. When they're pitted against Offaly again, against Antrim and against Waterford, and I'd be quite hopeful that they're going to do well in that group, Jack.
Yeah, we'll be hopeful, and they've shown that they can live with the best of them. It's where they go from here. You're looking to continue that improvement. Don't dwell on winning Munster. Keep going. There's a plenty good side there. Staying with the underage ranks and going back to football for a minute, Matt, and we will get to hurling. We'll finish off with a good section on hurling. But the Limerick under-20s, there's no point saying otherwise that they got their campaign off to a good start, because if they didn't, they were out. And whether that's right or wrong, that there's no backdoor in the under-20s football, that's for another day. But got the job done against Waterford, far from convincing. I think it's fair to say 2-6 to 6 points in Ballyagran. Goals from David O'Shannessy and Aaron Neville, which we've seen them with their clubs, Ballysteen, Newcastle, respectively. And I think Shane Kelly alluded to it afterwards, Matt, that they're constantly learning, and they'd learn from that. It wasn't a great performance, but they got the job done.
They got the job done, and that's what the first round is all about, Jack, especially when it's a knockout. And then they move on now to a tougher test, and that's as it should be in a knockout competition, that as you move on, that the tests get tougher. But I suppose they don't come much tougher than having to travel to Cork and down to Park Urin next Monday evening. But I have no doubt that they will have benefited considerably from the game against Waterford, and they will take quite a bit out of it, and probably take a bit out of the Liam O'Connor Cup now. Cork were involved, John, in Jack, in the John Cairns Cup, and they drew with Laois in the first round in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. They suffered a heavyish defeat to Galway and Kenvara in the second round, and beat Roscommon by a point in the final round. So they didn't make it to the knockout stage of the John Cairns Cup. And it might suggest that Cork mightn't be as good as usual, but there's no such thing as a bad Cork under-20 football team, or under-20 hurling team for that matter. So, look, Limerick are going to be up against it. I just say all that just to contextualise it and to what Limerick might be facing. But they're facing a formidable challenge on Monday night, and they will do exceptionally well to come out of it. Limerick haven't won in the Munster Under-20 Football Championship in Cork since the year 2000.
Last year they won it, though.
That's the year they won it. They beat Cork in the semi-final. They shocked Cork in the semi-final, and it went on and won the Munster Championship. Went on and beat Westmeath in the All-Ireland semi-final, and I suppose met a team for the ages when they met Tyrone, captained by the late Cormac McAnallen. in the All-Ireland final in Mullingar. But, you know, we'd love to recapture those days again. But, you know, the next hurl, the first hurl is over. Whatever they're out of the way, they're beaten. The next hurl is Cork, and it's a far more formidable hurl. And we just hope and wish them the best of luck in Cork on Monday evening.
Yeah, we do, and it could be a case of just, you know, maybe a bit of nerves. They would have been heavy favourites after getting to the Liam O'Connor Cup final. You know, there probably was a bit of pressure, so they've got that game under their belt, which is an advantage that Cork won't have. Last year, now Cork did prove too strong, but there's some really nice players on that Limerick team. I mentioned Davy and Aaron Neville. 𝘕𝘰𝘷𝘦𝘬𝘢𝘪𝘰𝘩, you know, missed the start with injury. Phenomenal footballer. He was brilliant, got a nice score. Darragh Murray is looking more like himself every game. The likes of Zach McCarthy making an impact off the bench. There's so many more. So Shane Kelly and his side, I guarantee you that they'll be training hard this week and they'll be confident. I don't think Shane goes into any game expecting to lose. So look, we'll wish them the best of luck, and please God they can get the result next Monday evening, Parky Ren at 7 o'clock. The game will be live on Munster A TV for anyone that can't attend. And then
look, their attitude is good. They're not putting too much pressure on themselves, which is a good thing. They've got their win. They're going to learn from that particular win against Waterford. Like, because they were damned if they do, and they were damned if they don't in that particular game. Because, like, Waterford's credentials coming into the game through the Andrew Corden Cup were very, very poor. 3 straight defeats to Wicklow, Wexford, and Carlow. Whilst Limerick had a decent Liam O'Connor Cup campaign. And I suppose there was a weight of expectation on Limerick. But Jack, we cannot forget either, like, that the conditions were very challenging. Now, all right, they were very, very challenging for both sides. But, like, challenging conditions like that, it's a great evener, you know. It evens up things. So as we saw in the Munster Minor Hurling Championship down in Dungarvan, and incidentally, talking about Dungarvan, the Waterford Clare game was called off 15 minutes before it was due to throw in Dungarvan last night.
Yeah, and they're
so
playing tonight as well, the
20s. How Limerick and Waterford got the green light. Now, apparently it's the referee's decision. I think that's unfair. That the referee.
Yeah, it's unfair it's unfair when it's Clare and Waterford that are so far away from each other.
Yeah,
should have been called earlier. If there's any sort of, you know, indication that it could go, just pull it. But look, we're not here to be.
No, we're not here to be talking about Clare and Waterford. This is treaty talk, and we're here to talk about Limerick. But
yeah, and we have so much to talk about.
It has a connection with Limerick, and that's why I mentioned it.
Oh, I know. But moving from the 20s to the minors, Matt, they obviously get their campaign underway this Thursday at 7 as well in McNeville Park. Also live on Munster GA TV. John Ryan named his side last night. Obviously, for a personal note, there was 2 Ballysteen lads on it. So well done to Sam and to Porrick, named the halfback and corner forward. But a nice team. Completely different to last year's team. I think Aidan O'Shea is the only one left remaining from last year's side. He's in midfield. I think Evan Curry, his midfield partner, might have been there last year as well. I'm not too sure. But for the minors, like the 20s, there's second chances there. They'll play Waterford, Tip, and Clare. The top 2 will play in a final. They'll both go through to play either Kerry or Cork. Kerry and Cork will meet, and they'll play the runners-up of the Phase 1. And the winners of the Phase 1 will play the losers of Cork and Kerry. Sounds convoluted, but actually very good system, Matt. And Limerick got to the final last year, and I think it was straight knockout last year. This year, both finalists go through, I'm fairly sure. But again, you look at Waterford as the weakest team, so John Ryan and his side will be keen to get off to a good start.
Yeah, no, it's much the same as last year in that Limerick are playing Tipperary in the first round again, you know, and like Limerick lost to Tipperary in the first round last year, and but bounced back with very good wins over Clare and Waterford to make it to the Phase 1 final. Now, Tipperary had an exceptionally strong team last year. When you compare it with those in the so-called weaker group, phase 1 group. And they defeated Limerick in the final down in Mallow. And this year is a new year, and you're right, Aidan O'Shea he's the captain. He's from Kappa. Kappa Red Keel. He's the only survivor from last year, and of course he's on a bit of a streak now at the moment because he was a key member of the Colossian and the Trócaire team that won the All Ireland D hurling colleges not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, which we were lauding, and whom we had in here. But very, very hard to make a judgment on minors on the first day out, Jack.
Yeah.
Very, very, very difficult. But there'll be no doubt that Tipperary will be pretty strong. And Limerick followed up with a trip to Milltown Malbay, and before completing the programme when Waterford come to McNeville Park.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one. Tipperary are generally good at underage. They pushed that very talented Clare 20s team all the way on Monday evening as well. So there's obviously whatever's happened with the senior ranks in Tipperary, the underage is still working a treat. But as shown last year, you can start with a loss and then regroup. But it'd be good for John Ryan and the team to get off to win, and that's what we're hoping for this Thursday. But as you said, it's hard to talk about a team that we haven't seen yet. So the best of luck to John and his side this Thursday evening at McNeville Park against Tipperary at 7 p.m. Live on Munster JTV. If you can't make it, we've just
before we finish on minor, Jack, before our next podcast, the minor hurlers are out next Tuesday night.
Yes,
when they take on Tipperary in Thurles. Now, of course, Tipperary are defending Munster and All Ireland champions, and their backs are to the wall at the moment because they've lost to Clare in the first round and they've lost to Cork in the second round. So they're in their last chance at this stage. Anything but a win over Limerick and it's out. Whilst Limerick had that win over Waterford in those difficult conditions in Dungarvan, and they had a good win over Clare in the second round. So I think Evan Lofton and his men will go to Thurles on Tuesday evening with no little confidence and well-placed confidence at that, because certainly from the two games, I thought there was considerable and very measurable improvement, notwithstanding the difficult conditions in round one. But I thought Limerick looked a much, much slicker outfit altogether when they played there in round two. And I think I'd be disappointed if Limerick don't get the job of qualifying for the knockout stages of the championship done on next Tuesday night.
And it would be important while they're going well to keep that going, because if you went to Cork, or if you welcomed Cork in the final round needing a win, we had said that Cork do look a formidable threat. So get the job done early and you can throw the shackles off for the last round, and then please God there's a Munster final to come. But yeah, the best luck to Evan Loftus and his side. We won't be talking again before they play next Tuesday in Thurles again, 7 o'clock live on Munster JTV. So if you can't make it, you'll be able to watch it online. And while we're on hurling, Matt, obviously it was the main talking point of the weekend. Limerick dominant without ever hitting anywhere near the higher gears on Sunday afternoon in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. It finished 220 to 14 points. I think Limerick got maybe 2 points in the last 10 minutes or so. Hit 15 second half wides. Really took whatever throttle they had pressed in the first half, they took their leg completely off it in the second and still cruised to victory. What do you say about this team, Matt, that hasn't already been said?
I just don't know, Jack. I have been sticking to the word awesome, and
we've gone past that.
I don't know how many degrees of awesome you can get, but it was just a phenomenal performance. Team going into a national final, the second most important final in the calendar. and you're hit with a body blow before the game with the withdrawal of Declan Hannon through illness and Kyle Hayes through injury. Like those that came in, Jack, Colin Coughlin and Mike Casey, they just seamlessly fitted in. It would give you an idea of the strength, the strength of this Limerick team. Now, Dan Morrissey, who was originally selected to play at fullback, moved out to centre back. Had a fantastic game out there. Mike Casey had to. I'm saying this now just to give you a sense of the bounty of riches that's at John Kiley's disposal. Mike Casey had to go for a HIA after about 10 minutes of the second half. He had to come off. Richie English came in, a seamless introduction again. Just business as usual. I just don't know. I don't think they got out of first gear. But having said that, I was hugely disappointed with Kilkenny. And one of the real positives that I took out of Cork on Sunday, first of all, of course, delighted with the Limerick win and 14th National League title and the third in 5 years. But I was delighted with the performances of Alan Gillan and Seamus Flanagan, who showed real signs of coming back to their top form, and they gave the Walshes a bit of a torrid hour on Leeside last Saturday or last Sunday evening, and but overall, as I said, I was disappointed with Kilkenny. But having said that, they were literally overpowered, and like Kilkenny and all the other counties that are in the Liam McCarthy Cup were hoping that Kilkenny would make a statement and see if Kilkenny, the masters of finals, if they could find cracks in the Limerick armour, but not a bit of it, Jack. Not a bit of it. This was far more comprehensive than the semi-final. In many ways, there were periods of the game that mirrored the second half against Tipperary. Like the defence, so mean, the meanest defence in the country. Sean Finn, Barry Nash, scoring a goal. He's back in position for the puck out in case he came down that direction. Dermot Burns, 5 points from half-back. This is phenomenal stuff, Jack. This is off the charts.
Yeah, you talk about the defence being mean. I don't know, is it meaner having to mark Sean Finn at one side and not get a sniff of ball, or to mark Barry on the other side and having to trail him unsuccessfully, and he scores 1-1 on you? I don't know. It's a case of pick your poison there, and I was listening to a few podcasts this week. A few years ago, it was gone to the stage of you have to mark Limerick's wing backs, Diarmuid Burns and Kyle Hayes. Now you have to mark their cornerbacks.
Yes, absolutely.
How does a team come up against Limerick? And if we'll say it'll be Davy Fitz the first round, and you say to Desi, I want a good few scores from you from play, but I want to make sure that Barry Nash or Sean Finn don't throw and get one as well.
Yeah, look, Jack, greater hurling men than me, far greater hurling men than me have all failed. Like even the like of Brian Cody have failed. The list is getting longer all the time, and I just don't know. Certainly, I suppose the placing of Hugh Lawler at centre half back for Kilkenny was probably a mistake. I thought.
Yeah, I think in a way
I thought he was sadly missed in the full back line.
100%.
And that's obviously something that Kilkenny will look to in going forward. But there's so many things to look to, and expecting TJ Reid to come back, and he will come back. and be the Messiah to lift them. Maybe he will, but I think he has a huge job of work from what I saw last week. And
yeah, because they were equally porous at the back as they were blunt going forward. I do give an awful lot of credit to Limerick with how they defended and how they dominated them, but it's not a case of they scored a lot but conceded more, or that they didn't score enough but kept it low. It was an 11-point hammering without Limerick ever really hitting their stride, and it's worrying for the likes of Waterford that are next up, that if that was Limerick in the league, what will they be like in the championship? And it brings me to this question to you, Matt. We've obviously been so blessed: 4 All-Irelands, 4 Munsters, 3 leagues in 5 years. But is this the best Limerick team we've seen so far in that period?
The current, this year's team you're talking about?
Yeah, right, 2023.
I possibly think it is, Jack. I possibly think it is. Now, and we haven't spoken at all about the master.
Yeah,
Cian Lynch.
He didn't score. He's no good.
But he certainly was involved in an awful lot of things. An awful lot of good things. And we won an All-Ireland. Look, Jack, the answer is simple. We won an All-Ireland last year without Cian Lynch. We have him this year, and we have Peter Casey this year. It has to be the best team.
Yeah, but even like Colin Coughlin. You didn't miss Hayes at all, or Dan Morrissey at wing back, equally in front of him, Cathal O'Neill. Tom Morrissey wasn't missed that much. We'd no Will and Barry Murphy, who I don't know anyone would have put Barry Murphy at midfield at the start of the year, and Barry did his usual, and he's really pushing for a starting place. And you mentioned Keane and Peter were back. I think 2021 was their peak, but I wouldn't be surprised if they surpassed this, and we'll know very soon because we do have championship coming up. But they're just an incredible team, Matt, and I think we'll enjoy.
We have a hot 7 days coming up with Waterford and Clare.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. But another thing is, if I had said to you before the game, obviously William was ruled out before the game, that's fine. If you said Declan Hannon and Kyle Hayes were going to be late withdrawals, and that Grode Hegarty, Cian Lynch and Peter Casey wouldn't score, I don't think he was giving me an 11-point victory somehow. But this team, regardless of the obstacle that is put in front of them, they're going to go out and beat you.
I think when there's obstacles put in front of them, and when there are men down in the circumstances, I think it galvanizes the rest of them.
Yeah, and I can imagine training this week, because the likes of Will Donoghue, he's not going to be guaranteed of his place. He's going to be hitting the ground running. Kyle the same. Tom didn't start. That the training, I imagine, will be absolutely ferocious over the next week, and should only make Limerick better, which is a scary prospect.
Absolutely scary prospect. But look, Jack, I will always put a note of caution. The championship, and I think John Kiley was at pains to put that note of caution as well after the match. The championship is a different animal, Jack.
It is, and teams will be gunning. Waterford will probably have looked at Limerick since before the league started, but they've had 3-4 weeks now to really look at Limerick, and Davy is quite innovative. So if there's someone to put a halt on Limerick, it could come in the first round, but as you said, if you put an absolute in their way, God forbid they lost, I think the repercussions for the other team, I don't think anyone would like to see Waterford beat Limerick in Munster, because you can guarantee you'll get a response from Kiley in the side, and it would probably be very difficult to overhaul him in terms of the teams coming down the line. But that was the league, Matt. It was an interesting league. It was good.
Actually, look, it got off to a bad start with the defeat by Cork. It was an unlucky defeat. But look, there was a lot of positives to take out of that defeat, in that, it was basically essentially an experimental Limerick team. There was a lot of people tried out on that first night against Cork, and they only lost by a last-minute point to Shane Kingston. I suppose, they learned the lesson from it, because they were comfortably ahead at half-time by 8 points, I think, and sort of lost their way in the second half and conceded a couple of goals and that sort of thing. And, But in the end we're only beaten by a point. But after that, their league campaign took off. Now, it wasn't a great league, and not just it didn't have a great final. Wasn't a great league, but we did make the point here, in terms of the league, that we felt, and I'm convinced of it actually, that Limerick came out of a much stronger group in the league. The Limerick group was tougher, no question about it, and we saw that now, because they faced the two teams that came out from the other side, and they were comfortable winners over both of them. So I think that was borne out.
Yeah, and I suppose,
but as I said, John Kirby would be parking the league now. There'll be no more talk about the league, because Waterford won the league and won a spectacular final last year, an excellent final, and flopped in the Munster Championship.
Yeah, I know, but this Limerick team have proven to us so many times that they're so reliable. I suppose the only All-Ireland contender, and that's with the greatest respect to the likes of Dublin and Antrim, that the only one that didn't play was Waterford. They'll have played them in a week and a half's time. From what we have seen, who is the closest to Limerick? Now, we would have said Kilkenny, and I think they will be a different animal come championship, but in terms of what we've seen so far this year, who's the closest?
Galway and Tipperary.
Both of them.
Tipperary are coming.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Galway and Kilkenny I think are the closest to Limerick. There's only 5 points in the game in Salt Hill, but again, Limerick completely is off the throttle. They could have hammered them if they want. And I think there was a big case that with Limerick this year. They beat what was in front of them. They racked up heavy leads and then stepped off the gas. And maybe it was a case of not showing their hand, or they knew they'd enough done. But I think the gap from 1 to 2 is a lot bigger than the gap from 2 to 8 or 9, which is another scary prospect for Limerick.
It is a scary prospect.
And the 3 to come out of Munster, I'm going to come to you again next week, but right now, the 3 to come out of Munster.
Limerick, Tip and Cork.
Limerick, Tip and Cork. I think I agree with you with Cork. Obviously, Limerick. I still have a feeling for Waterford. I think there's something up their sleeve, but how couldn't you make the case for Clare either, with Mr. Tony Kelly to come through? So it's a really intriguing championship to come along. We'll look at it in depth next week. But before we go from the league, Matt put up a poll yesterday, just looking for who people thought was the player of the league. Just under 1,000 responses. Who is your top 3? And we'll see, do you agree with the people? Limerick's best performer over the course of the league.
My top 3 would be Barry Nash, Dermot Burns, and Tom Morrissey.
Okay. They agree with you in 2. Number 1 is Barry Nash, is it?
Yeah, I look. I thought he was simply magnificent, and all he did last Sunday was more of the same.
Yeah.
I think he's been incredible, absolutely incredible.
For me, I think the player of the league, he missed the semi-final, which will go against him, was Dara Donovan.
Dara had a fantastic league, very, very consistent as well. But you see, when you're talking about the Limerick team, when you were saying to me there a week ago, the best 5, I said, make that 25, Well,
we're coming to that in the next segment, Matt, so get ready. But top 3 at the moment, Barry's in front, followed by Tom, and then Dara is in third. But there's so many responses, and you could make a genuine case for anyone, because the Limerick team is just so good. And there's players popping from everywhere. It doesn't matter if there's injuries or flus or suspensions. The juggernaut just keeps rolling, and a long may it last as we look forward to the championship. But looking forward to the championship, Matt, and we did it last year. I I think it might have been during the championship, but this year we'll revisit our Limerick MVPs, most valuable players, not necessarily the best, but so from my understanding is who are the key components for Limerick to function. Now, narrowing that to 5 is a really thankless job, a difficult job.
I suppose, I presume you're basing it on the league.
Yeah, to an extent. I suppose league and maybe.
Or are you making a general statement because there's a difference?
I don't know. I threw down so many names, man. I don't know what I was just looking at the players and how good they were. But I think what I was looking at over the course of maybe the last 2 or 3, I suppose since the All-Ireland run started, and looking forward into this year's championship, who do I think Limerick need the most on the field at any given time? Now, everyone can have an off day and all of them can have an exceptionally good day. But for me, it was who probably makes them tick the most. Now, to be fair, there's probably 12 or 13, 14, 15 guaranteed to start. It's very hard to see who breaks into the team. But that's my thinking. Who are the main men in terms of making Limerick Limerick? Now, your criteria might be different, but that's what we're here to debate. I'll run through last year's list from 2022. We both had Nicky Quaid, both had Will Donoghue, both had Cian Lynch. I had 𝘠𝘰𝘷𝘦𝘬𝘭𝘴 Hegarty and Declan Hannon, and you had Barry Nash and Seamus Flanagan as your other two. So that's where we differentiated. And this year, it I don't know. We might do it live. We might see, but I think we'll both agree on the man, and he wears number 1. I think we'll both agree with that, Nicky Quaid. And I saw an article during the week that said he is the most irreplaceable player. And he doesn't have his usual backup. Dave McCarthy is a fine goalkeeper, but just doesn't have the experience that Barry Hennessy had. So I think even Nicky is more important now than he was when we did this 12 months ago. But I'm sure we both have Nicky in there.
Oh, definitely. No question about it.
Yeah, we had Joe on last week, and he was talking about the strides Nicky has made, and we've spoken at length about Nicky. But is it fair to say he's Limerick's greatest goalkeeper? Of all time.
Yeah. Look, Limerick have had great goalkeepers in the past, and and including Joe, who was in with us last week. But what Nicky has achieved has been simply phenomenal. He's brought the whole goalkeeping thing to a new level, Jack. Absolutely new level. Who'll ever forget that clearance to Tom Morrissey in the semi-final and Tom sending it over the bar? His appreciation of what's on and what's not on and what's happening the whole into the field. Absolutely, simply phenomenal. And to pinpoint it to where Tom Morrissey was going to be, that's only a snapshot, Jack. But yeah. Look, irreplaceable, indispensable.
Yeah. And he was one of 3 that started that All-Ireland quarter-final against Kilkenny in 2012. He came on the panel when the strike was happening. Nicky Quaid's career will be remembered for all that he won, but he will have spent probably, by the time he retires, half his career, in the doldrums, seeing Limerick at the lowest of lows, and he's so deserving to be there at the highest of highs, and so integral. Probably doesn't get appreciated as much as he does, because, as we said last year, he never makes a mistake. So it's very easy to point out someone's mistakes. It's probably harder to point out when they do something exceptional in goals. But he is just Mr. Consistency, always 8 or 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10.
But yeah, absolutely, Jack. But that's his inter-county career. Do not forget his career with Effin.
Yeah,
he was central to Effin going places where Effin had never gone before. They won the Limerick Junior Championship for the first time. They followed it up the following year by winning the Limerick Intermediate Championship. And not only that, they went on and won the Munster Clubs Championship. Nicky Quaid was centre back, the outstanding performer and all that. And we saw last year again when they won the county intermediate championship. And Effin, and they're drawn from a strictly rural club, Jack. And, they mixed it with the big boys. When they went up senior, they survived at senior level for 4 years. And Nicky Quaid was one of the main reasons why they did.
Yeah.
Like this man has had an absolutely phenomenal career, and I've spoken about this before, about his contribution. We know what his contribution to Limerick, and we know what his contribution to Effin. I've just outlined it there. But Jack, there's another side to him. His contribution to the game, to the association off the field is simply unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, an absolute gentleman, brilliant goalkeeper, brilliant man, brilliant player. Blessed to have him and have had him for 13 years now, and it'll be a sad day when Nicky finally hangs up the boots. But hopefully it's not anytime near in the future. Give us your second name, Matt. You've jotted down. They're not in order, but just we got 5.
Declan Hannon.
Yeah, and a change from last year that I had him and you didn't have him, but obviously he is crucial. Why did you pick him?
Yes, absolutely. Every day he goes out, and we have this man of the match thing and all that sort of thing. He could be named man of the match most days, but he makes the game look so simple, and he does difficult things and makes them look simple. But Jack, his leadership is absolutely incredible, and his contribution to Limerick over the years. You don't be a 4 times All-Ireland winning captain for nothing, Jack. That in itself is a phenomenal achievement. But what he has achieved as a hurler on the field is simply phenomenal. And like Nicky Quaid, when Declan Hannon decides to call time, there is going to be a gap.
Yeah, for me,
that would be very hard to fill, Jack.
I wrote an article last year was he Limerick's greatest ever player? And when I say greatest, I suppose it's in terms of career, longevity, talent, obviously leadership. When you bottle it all into one, there's a very strong case to say Declan is Limerick's greatest ever player. Obviously, so talented, but came in with a lot of pressure, Matt. Heralded on that 𝘕𝘰𝘷𝘦𝘬𝘪𝘢 side. I think he made his Limerick debut shortly after his leaving cert, if not before. Again, went through those barren years. That day against Clare in the All-Ireland semi-final, it just didn't go his way. Like, he was 21 or 2 at the time, and to respond how he has. And I think he might be, alongside Cian Lynch, maybe Limerick's most unique player in the set of skills he has. In terms of playing that role at number 6, and like we've seen Dan Marsky do it, and we've seen Kyle do it, but he's a different kind of player. We've brilliant players all over the field, but he's very different, I think, in how he approaches the game upstairs. I don't think there's anyone on Declan Hannon's intelligence levels on the field. So often the ball just comes to him, and that's not by fluke. That is reading of the game, and in terms of his reading of the game, he knows when he has to get up the field and score. He mightn't score every game, but when he does, it's generally an All-Ireland final or a Munster final or in Croke Park, just incredible player.
I'm all the time saying, Jack, it's more than a coincidence that the All-Ireland semi-final we lost in 2019, we lost it when he was off the field. I've no doubt whatsoever if Declan Hannon was on the field, we'd have had a different result.
Yeah, we could be looking at a 6 in a row or a 5 in a row this year, or could have been 6 in a row. Yeah, but look, that's for history books. But both have Declan Hannon in there. My third name, looking at here, and I had him last year as well. We both had him, Cian Lynch. Now, you could make the case that they won an All-Ireland without Cian, But in terms of the performances, when you compare 2020 and 2021 and the first 5 months this year to 2022, there definitely was a drop off. Tom Morrissey said he's the best player in the country. I don't think there's any doubt in that. Cian Lynch, so key and arguably the key man in the entire Limerick operation.
I agree totally with you. I've got into trouble over things I've said about Cian Lynch, and none of them are derogatory, believe it or not. But I hold the view that Cian Lynch is the best hurler of all time. I'm convinced of it. And like he was missing for a lot of last year. Most of last year, he got injured against Waterford. But you know, he's back after a serious injury, and it's like as if he was never away. And you mentioned earlier on there in our cast that he didn't score against Kilkenny. But Jack, he was crucial in the second goal, which you know, he picked out the position of Seamus Flanagan, and like it was a sublime bit of skill on his part, and Seamus Flanagan and Aaron Gillan did the rest. And look, I've said it all before.
Yeah, I think with Keane, ever outside of his scoring, like he assisted 2-5 in the first half of the All-Ireland final in 21 and scored 5 to make it 6 in the second half. I mean, he had 2 men of the match performances in the one All-Ireland final. Now Peter Casey will have something to say about that. But for me, what's nearly most impressive is he's always an outlet. You know, if Burns or Hannon or Hayes or Morrissey, Will Donoghue, Dar Donovan, Tom Morrissey, Hegarty, if any of them are trouble, he is always open. Even if he's marked by 2 or 3 men, he'll stick out that right paw and he'll invariably catch it. Genius with the ball, genius without. Leader as well. You know, captain on the day, lifted a trophy. He was captain for the 2020 Munster Hurling League. You know, he seems to be the next in line for whenever Declan calls it a day, but probably will go down as Limerick's greatest. A very good chance he'll go down as the greatest of all time. Could be a 3rd hurler of the year loading this year, because he'll be desperate to make an impact after last year. Cian Lynch is in both of our Limerick Hurling MVPs top 5. Your 4th one?
Diarmuid Burns.
Diarmuid Burns, reigning hurler of the year. I suppose, why'd you pick
look, Jack, a wing back that gives you a scoring return like he does is it's only part of the story, because he's an absolutely phenomenal defender.
Yeah,
you know, you never see his man doing anything, and like he's such a ball winner as well. Absolutely fantastic. Who'll forget the point he got against Kilkenny in the All-Ireland final last year? You know, but like last Sunday in the league, 5 points from wing back. Like if you have a wing back that's giving you 4, 5, 6, and in one case 8 points, he's a very, very valuable member, Jack.
Yeah, you know, he was hurler of the year for a reason, and he had 6 points the first day against Cork, and he never really relented in terms of scoring. And I suppose the scoring kind of hides how good of a defender he is, because it's very rare his men will get on the scoreboard. And you talk about iconic scores there, you know, that he got, I think it might have been Limerick's last score at the weekend. There was a loose ball played across to him, and you know, Diarmuid's a big man, and the ball was just bounced off the sod and caught it, picked it up with his hand on the run, never broke stride, fired it over from inside his own half. You know, very few people can put over a score like that, and you're stepping in there.
He did it twice on Sunday. He did that twice.
Yeah, you know,
as much as say if you think the first one was a fluke, here's another.
Yeah, and you know, we spoke about the longevity of a lot of these players. Like Diarmuid captained the 2015 side. That, you know, it was I know they'd won minor Munsters the previous 2 years, but that 2015 one was, I suppose, when you could really start to believe as a Limerick fan that there was something special in the offing. And, you know, Diarmuid was part of that team. He was one of the first ones drafted into the senior team. And he's just getting better. You know, you could argue that he's a better player than he was 6 or 8 months ago when he won the hurler of the year. just we're so lucky. And to be honest, I don't even have him in my top 5 to leave out.
Like
a hurler.
He missed part of the league this year, and talk about getting up to speed and catching up with the lads. Not a bit of it. He's right there with them.
Yeah, I feel bad for the lads in Dubai that had to come up with him, because maybe they might have been thinking he's had a few weeks off, he's had a holiday, mightn't be at the races, but my God, he has hit the ground running. But as I said, it didn't make my list, and which is, I haven't written down, but I've all written down, which is mad to think. But I just think maybe Colin Coughlin could develop into a player like that. Probably not as efficient, but a scoring wing back, or Kyle obviously offers something different, but another scoring wing back, and that's why I opted for Will Donoghue as my 4th one on the list. We both had him last year. I'm not sure if he's maintained his spot in your list, but for me, he's the first person on the Limerick team that the opposition make contact with in that throw-in. He sets the tone straight away. Such a physical specimen. He's so loud. You can always hear him. He's always driving. The amount of shots you see of a Limerick player winning a free and Will is in the background celebrating, he's the enforcer on the team. I think he's the best midfielder in the country. Again, I think he's very unique in how he approaches the game. Darragh Donovan is probably of a more and more hurler, if you get me, probably more skillful with the ball, adds in a few more scores. But Will Donoghue is just a powerhouse in the middle of the field. I think he gets into any sort of XV you want. I think any team would be lucky to have him. So often lays down the marker. Like, we remember when Jamie Barron was flying a few years ago, and Will Donoghue destroyed him in both games against Noel McGrath, who should have been hurler of the year the previous year in 2020. Will completely destroyed him. Darragh Fitzgibbon, the 2021 final last year, just so abrasive against Kilkenny. For me, I have to have Will Donoghue. There was a group of us at the county final between Kilmallock and the Pearshig, and we just said, if you had one of the players, on show today, who would you pick? And every one of us went for Will Donoghue, and you had superstars, the likes of, Peter Casey, Mike Casey, Micheál Houlihan, Oisin O'Reilly, Graham Mulcahy, but Will Donoghue, there's just something about him, so unique. So Will makes my list.
I agree totally with everything you said about Will Donoghue. Absolutely, I've fierce time for him as a player. But Jack, and that's why I semi-protested when you said at the start that it would have to be 5.
Yeah,
I think I didn't protest hard enough at that stage.
Yeah, I suppose it just makes it more tricky. Like, I'm looking at the people I've left off here. Kyle Hayes for me is in the top 5 hurlers in the country every day of the week. But when the MVP one, if I was picking Limerick's 5 best players, Kyle is 100% in it. Similarly, Corrode Hegarty is the top 5 hurler in the country. On his day is unmarkable, unmatchable, arguably the best player in the country. Sean Finn is the best defender in the country. No arguments from anyone there. So key to what Limerick does. And I think he probably came closest to my selection. Now, I think we will have the same man as our number 5. Aaron Gillane is so integral to what Limerick do as just a scoring force, a target man. You can give Aaron any sort of ball, he'll take it. And I'll stop naming players there, because I'll name them all and we'll name subs then, but we can do honourable mentions afterwards. But is your 5 the same as my 5?
I'm going for the 5th is Aaron Gillane.
Okay. Give it why you picked Aaron.
Well, I think we saw very, very clearly last Sunday his value to the team. First of all, going out in games, he's a marked man, and he has the capacity to move around and upset defenses and pull them around the place. And in one-to-one contact, Jack, he is excellent. Now, a lot of the time he's fouled. And doesn't, and this is a beef that I have, doesn't at times get the protection that he deserves. But we saw last Sunday an Aaron Gillane coming back to near his best, and an Aaron Gillane proving how valuable he is to the Limerick team. We saw him catch that ball that that Seamus Flanagan delivered, timing his offload to Barry Nash, goal. We saw him taking, instead of what most players would do, fumble and try to pick up the pass from Seamus Flanagan, he first timed it to the net.
Yeah.
You know, he's, and I'm not being conditioned by that, Jack. That solely is not, but that is a fair snapshot of what he's all about. But I think Aaron is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, and I've kind of gone defensive heavy on this. Cian Lynch will be my only attacker on my list today, but I think Aaron Gillane is very unique again. As you said, for all those reasons, he's so key, and I think just maybe he wasn't as missed in the start of the league as I think some fellas might have been. But like I had said it, that if you didn't have Aaron Gillane for that Ireland Championship, I don't think he'd be winning it. I think he's that sort of a difference maker. And there, you throw your hand up as if to say that's my point exactly. But the man I went for on my list is Barry Nash, and I suppose maybe the recency bias there could help Barry over the line. You had him last year. I have him this year. There's been a few swaps, and I mean, if we did this in 6 weeks' time, there'd be changes. But what kind of a corner forward, Matt, can you turn into an all-star cornerback, a Hurler of the Year nominee, completely changing how the role is played? I just don't think there's many people out there, if any, that could have made the transformation Barry did. I mean, he could have been disheartened with, not starting the 2018 final. He only came on in 2019, but from 2020 on, he's just been phenomenal. There was one slight error against Clare in the 2020 quarterfinal. There was a breaking ball. A few of them went to it. Wasn't necessarily Barry's fault, but maybe more experienced defender might have waited for it. But since then, cruel what he did to Kilkenny on Sunday afternoon, to go up and score 1-1 from play, and probably could have scored more if he wanted. Just the adaptability, leadership again, captain Limerick in the Munster League last year. Just for me, just lets Limerick play the way they play in many regards. I know. Yeah.
It was a fierce hard call for me to let Barry Nash out. I had him in last year, and I'm somebody that's in awe of the way he made the transition from. We can only just wonder, Jack, if he was in the forwards now, what kind of a forward he'd be. Absolutely outstanding. But there were eyebrows raised when he was moved initially to left half back, and he had a storming career there at left half back. And then when the vacancy came, was Mike Casey and Richie English were out for the first round of the Munster Championship in 2020. Was that the game that doubled up with the league final?
Yeah,
against Clare. And we felt here in this, that Barry Nash, seeing that he made the transition from the forwards to wing back, that he would probably make the transition back another step, which he did. And he immediately settled into it, Jack. And as the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, there's making the transition to be a cornerback, and then there's making the transition to completely alter how the game is played and become a marked man at number 4. And I think Joe Quaid had a good tweet up there at the weekend, and I'll get it up. But I suppose it was kind of highlighting the difficulty of marking Barry. And he said, imagine being corner forward and your man scores 1-1 from play in the first half against the breeze. And I think that sums up just trying to mark Barry Nash. But look, we won't mention again who we missed out, because you could make a case for any of those players, and you could also make a case for one of those impact subs that are so crucial as well. And it comes back to that. I remember 2008 when Brian Cody was named man of the match for the All-Ireland final. I mean, you could put Paul Kinnerk or John Kiley in this list if you were so inclined. But I think the overall moral of the story is we're so blessed, Matt.
Yeah, I'd be well deep into the extended panel before I'd be struggling to make a case.
Yeah, it just look good times and long may they continue. But we leave our MVP talk.
Look, Jack, you're spoiled, but an old fella like me, we really appreciate it because we can see the contrast.
Yeah, well, you say I'm spoiled. Like I mean, I was born about 2 or 3 weeks before the '96 All Ireland. I was there in 07. All my formative experiences with Limerick hurling were negative. So I am so grateful.
Well,
training.
My start, as I've already outlined in this program, the first time I saw Limerick playing in the Senior Hurling Championship was in 1960 at the Athletic Grounds in Cork, and they were beaten 10-9 to 2-1 by Tipperary, and I cried all the way to 𝘠𝘬𝘭𝘴 because I had been somehow convinced that Limerick were going to win beforehand.
Yeah, well, there's definitely more chance of Limerick winning 10-9.
So short pants time, Jack.
Yeah, well, look, I know I'm blessed, but I'm looking at the lads that were training below, and they know nothing other than winning. And look, it's a great way to be, but we certainly had some low times. Even the last decade or so, like that 2013 semi-final against Clare was about as low as I've ever been for a Limerick game. Just was as you were full of confidence. I didn't cry all the way home from Dublin, but I certainly didn't speak. And 12 months later against Kilkenny in the rain and the storm, when they gave as good as they got, there was the last in the Munster final in 14. There was the last Kilkenny in 07. There was that last Offaly in 08. After reaching that Ireland final, there has been dark days, but it has been nothing but sunshine since John Kiely answered the call, and we said we started with Diarmuid Burns and his crew in 15. And the scary thing is when you look at Nicky is probably at the far side of his career, but a lot of those lads we mentioned are in around their peak, so, and there's lads to come. You've had the Adam Englishes, the Shane O'Briens, the Colin O'Neills, the Colin Coughlins, the Fergal O'Connors, these boys, and you look at the minor team that have won 2 out of 2 and the 20s that are undefeated, and we'll have a hard time doing this for the next few years, Matt. I think the MVPs, and we might go back to that after the season concludes, because I'm sure it will change. But just over nearly an hour and a half here. But one thing I just came across last night, and I wanted you had a tweet about it. Unfortunately, Fergal Horgan's time as an intercounty referee came to an end yesterday, kind of out of the blue for me. But I've seen Fergal referee All Ireland finals to Fitzgibbon Cup games, to club championship games, and I thought he was the best in the business, and he's definitely a loss to the game.
A huge loss, Jack. A huge loss, and coming at a time, I suppose, when there's, particularly in Limerick anyway, but I'm sure across, I see the chairman of Wexford County Board out as well some time ago there recently about the lack of referees, when there's a general lack of referees around the country, and there's a recruitment drive. I think it's a very, very, very sad. It's a very, very sad news that Fergal Horgan will no longer see him as the man in the middle. I think, and I would appeal to the GA authorities at this stage, before it's too late, to do everything that's possible to try and get Fergal Horgan to change his mind. Yeah. Because he's a universally liked and respected referee for the way he goes about his business. He has been scrupulously fair in all his dealings with all counties, with clubs, with colleges, and he has a reputation for that. And I think that before it's too late, we have seen referees walk in the past, the like of James McGrath, a very good referee from Westmeath. and now we have you know, a referee of the caliber of Fergal Horgan. You know, I look, I respect his reasons that he outlined in the interview, but look, I think there should be a meeting of minds in this, that the GA should approach Fergal Horgan with a view to getting him back on board. I think from the reaction that was on social media, Jack, that is what the GA fraternity want. They want Fergal Horgan.
Yeah, definitely, and that's why I brought it up, because you know we had Donica and Johnny on recently, you know, and you know they spoke about the enjoyment refereeing, and just this kind of came out of the blue. And from a Limerick point of view, I don't think we've ever had any issues with Fergal Horgan. It's always been a fair and a very good ref at the end of the day. But so hopefully common sense can prevail there, and we can get him back on board. But Matt, near an hour and a half here, we might call that a podcast. Got through so much. Obviously started with Anthony McCarthy and Maurice O'Connor with the Masters, so the best luck to them. They play on Saturday for anyone around, the Gaelic Gaels against Cork in a challenge at 2:00. Their championship starts at the start of May. We had Diarmuid Ryan from the manager of the Limerick U16s that won a first ever Munster A Camogie title at the weekend, and they start championship in May. So if you're only tuning in now, get back to the start to listen to those. The Limerick minor footballers are out on Thursday. The minor hurlers are out on Tuesday. The 20s footballers are out Monday. And I suppose we're only 10 days away from that Munster Championship. We look back on the league final, and we looked at our Limerick MVPs with some disagreement, but a lot of agreement. So we might call it a podcast there, Matt. A huge thank you to Knowles Menswear, as always, for sponsoring the pod. To you, Matt, for your incredible insights. For everyone listening, and all our guests, we'll be back again next week for another bumper edition of Tree Talk. So thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Question again, we get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as 𝘰𝘰𝘷𝘦𝘳𝘀𝘚 sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods, and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well, 𝘚𝘱𝘰𝘕 Buckley. To do that to 𝘚𝘪𝘵 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴. He deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time